little bird tells me you're going to New Zealand. What's taking you over there?
Well, I mean, it's an opportunity to run a thing called the Wellington Regional Economic Development Agency. So what they've done is to bring together tourism, events, venues, and economic, what they call economic growth. And they've asked me to run that organisation, bring it together, and drive it for the next several years. So it's a big opportunity.
Obviously sad to be leaving Cape Town. What have been some of your highlights? In your current position, the sort of things you got done?
You know, I think the big issue, and you're right, there's a massive sadness to be leaving Cape Town. This has been home for my whole life. But we set out to take Accelerate Cape Town from where it was 3 years ago to a business leadership organisation, and I think we've done that very successfully. We engage with private and public sector around policies and practices to drive economic growth. Very importantly, it's inclusive and sustainable growth. And I think we're on the right track for that. I think whoever my successor is, evidence this morning, AXA with TMPA, with Westgrow, all working together with the business community. I think that's a significant foundation from which to push forward.
We've been hearing efficiencies on the up, red tapes on the down.
Yep.
Do you put that down for the collaboration between business and government?
I think there's a number of things. You know, the Alan Windy's department in the provincial government has been very purposeful about saying we need to get rid of red tape, and they're doing at a sub-national level whatever they can to drive that. But similarly, last year I engaged with the Minister of Home Affairs around the visa regime. Some of those things are long-term plays. But what you need in South Africa, in my view, is a clear and open and mature understanding between business, between government, to say we need X, Y, and Z. And it's not about the Western Cape, it's not about Cape Town, it's not about business or government. It's about South Africa Inc. How do we take this thing called South Africa forward for the benefit of everyone?
And the keys to making Cape Town the hub on the same level as Joburg?
Well, I think we need to recognise Cape Town is, if you look over the last several years, a number of organisations have said, or a number of publications around the world have said we are the tourism top 50 cities in the world. I was in a conversation recently with Roger Foster at Airlink. You could fly from Cape Town into Maun, or into Botswana, or into Zambia, or into the eastern part of South Africa, Mpumalanga. And we need to leverage that. You know, look at this harbour, it's fantastic. We bring ships in and out. We export agricultural produce. Up the coast you've got the oil and gas industry. You need to focus on what your strengths are and what your distinctive strengths are, and not try and be everything to everyone. Johannesburg has got its strengths, Cape Town's got its own. And we need to figure out in Cape Town, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's financial services, whether it's tourism, let's focus on that, and let's focus on what makes us strong and drive it hard, because that way we'll be strong and Johannesburg will be strong and Durban, so that's how you build the country.
Often a lot of doom and gloom in the press, but it seems to be quite upbeat. Do you think we're often painting the wrong picture of what we obviously they're trying to sell newspapers, but you know, we're often not giving ourselves a pat on the back when we need it.
Well, I think, you know, sometimes we become quite insular. We focus on ourselves, focus inwards. And what we need to do is to step up and say, where are we in a globalized world? Our National Development Plan, which is a tremendous document, speaks about globalization, urbanization, the rise of the African middle class, climate change and technology change. Those are global issues. And we as a city need to look at ourselves and say, where do we fit, not just in South Africa or the Western Cape, but where do we fit in the world? Because investors look at us like that. And when you do that, it actually transforms your perspective. You say, yes, we've got an energy crisis, there's no question that needs to be resolved. But there are other parts of the world that also have challenges. How do we recognize our challenges, address them, but keep looking forward? Because that, for me, it's also about emotional intelligence. You've got to say, right, we know we've got challenges, but these are the solutions, this is how we're addressing them. And I think you saw this morning the engagement between business, between state-owned enterprises with government. That sort of partnering approach is the right way.
And your key competition, Joburg, can you rate their level of integration between all the various stakeholders?
Sorry, I didn't catch the question.
Your main competition, Johannesburg, can you rate the level of integration between the various stakeholders doing what you're doing?
You see, I don't see Johannesburg as competition. I think, you know, at some level,
should be working together.
At some level, we do compete. Of course, you know, cities do compete because cities drive economic growth even more than countries do. But Johannesburg, I was there earlier this week. It's a wonderful place to do business. It has certain strengths, and we need to recognise that. Sandton is the financial, at some level, the banking capital certainly of Africa. But Cape Town is the asset management capital. 70%, something like 70% of all South African FDI into the rest of the continent comes out of this city. So banking in Johannesburg, investment here, we shouldn't be looking at it and saying, how do we beat Johannesburg? We should be saying, how do we collaborate or cooperate, combine competition and collaboration and say, right, how do we, as cities, grow the economy?
That seems to be the key with the parastatals working together as well. It's never really happened before.
Well, I was thrilled this morning. I was totally thrilled because we've got guys, as you say, when Tebogo said, we're the less bad parastatal, it was quite funny, but it was quite honest as well.
Yeah.
Eskom's got challenges, and South Africa's power generation is problematic. But when you can see, and I've been involved with the government here, with the National Treasury as well to some extent, Eskom saying, look, we recognize we've got problems. We need to address them. Business, we need your help. And business also must recognize that it can't do everything on its own. It's got certain skills, government's got certain skills. Bringing those together, that's what Accelerate Cape Town and what business leadership organizations around the world are about.
And accelerating employment, reducing unemployment, keys to that?
Now, I'm quite fond of, I'm a former consultant, and a 2x2 matrix where on the vertical axis you've got growth, so high growth at the top and low growth at the bottom. And across the horizontal you've got inclusion. South Africa, unfortunately, for far too long has been in the bottom left-hand quadrant of low growth and frankly still largely exclusive. So some people are making good money, good jobs, other people not. We need to make sure we're in the top right-hand quadrant. And from a business perspective, I have not come across a single business leader who doesn't agree with that statement. What we need to figure out is how we do it. And if you again look at the port, driving infrastructure investment with a cruise line terminal that was announced yesterday is going to absorb labour. In the short term, it's construction, and that's less skilled labour. In the longer term, if you look at Saldanha, you're looking at petrochemical engineers. That's massively skilled. So it's not a binary. It's not an either or. If you look at similar examples around the world, Singapore has gone through 4 or 5 or 6 transformations over the last 50 years. We need to recognize where we are. We need to absorb labour, absolutely. Most of it, unfortunately, is unskilled labour. We need to address the education situation. But let's not try and plan for 50 years' time. Let's plan for the next 5 to 10. Let's get this cog of the economy turning. Because doing that gives people jobs, gives them dignity. And then you see the engine start getting stronger and stronger.
And another big growth sector has been the energy sector. How can we really boost that and get more renewables on the table?
Well, I think you've seen NERSA coming through with a number of IPPs have been good. I'm a proponent of gas. I think certainly in the Western Cape, and I would be adamant, it's not about energy independence because we are a South African city first and foremost. But what we could do is land gas in Saldanha, drive gas. And you asked about renewables. Gas to me is a bridging technology between where we are now to where we need to get to. Drive gas, free up a lot of the capacity here to help the rest of the country. So that takes the load down in the short to medium term. Whilst we're doing that, we're very fortunate we're in a sunny day. But let's make sure that we keep driving those IPPs, keep looking for financing options. Not far from here, Black River Parkway is the largest rooftop PV array in the Southern Hemisphere. So there's South Africa.
They've got so much potential here for solar.
It's incredible. And I think we're seeing as the price point varies, even individuals, homeowners are going the same way.
And these lithium-ion batteries are going to be a game changer as well.
Massive. I don't know if you've been down to the University of the Western Cape. They're doing work not so much on lithium-ion, but on hydrogen fuel cells.
Yeah, well that's a big one as well.
Elon Musk is saying, I'll give you the technology. And maybe that's something we need to look at. South Africa's got platinum stores which are needed in the hydrogen fuel cells.
Yeah.
How do we take that? And it's not just in the short term, it's about South Africa.
That could be a game changer for the platinum industry.
But that could be a game changer for how we beneficiate platinum here and take those solutions around the world.
You stumble on it, not stumble, but you bring up a good point. Beneficiation, how can we get more done in South Africa?
I think we just need to look and pick on again. I made the comment earlier about do what you're good at, focus on your strengths. We have massive mines. We have platinum. We've got the biggest platinum deposits in the world. We've got an energy crisis. Right? Let's not just look at one thing and say, let's look at it as a silo. Let's look at it as an integrated solution. There's 1 billion people on the continent. How do we develop energy solutions here and then export them? I think, for me, it comes down to some fundamentals of what are our strengths, what are we good at, what are the trends that we're seeing around the world, and how do we find the nexus of them and then take that forward.
Are we almost over-ambitious with plans of 8 nuclear power stations? We only really need 2 or 3.
The nuclear, look, I don't want to...
that's old news.
The nuclear power plants shouldn't be happening.
Is that just talk?
Well, no, I suspect they're going to happen, but there's only one organisation in the country that wants them, and that's the presidency. Nuclear power is not required in South Africa.
It's yesterday's news.
I'm not anti-nuclear, What I am absolutely adamantly for is energy security for the country.
Yeah.
And the nuclear, if one looks at the numbers, I've had engagement with Anton Eberhardt from the National Planning Commission and with others. If one looks at the numbers, nuclear is not a viable solution in the next 10 to 15 years. It begs the question, why is the President driving it?
Oh, it's money for jam. But you build in 15 years' time, you've got 8 power stations, and then you've got a whole bunch of solar, you've got gas and everything, and these power stations might stand empty.
Look, I'm not an energy expert. I can only reflect on what energy experts have said quite openly. Nuclear it's not a question of either or. But in the next 10 to 15 years, by the time we get there, your current fossil fuel, plus your renewables, plus your gas plus renewables gives you baseload. You don't need nuclear, and you certainly don't need the expense that the presidency is driving in that space. I'm not a conspiracy theorist particularly, but it does beg questions as to what's been done.
And finally, while we're on the negative, toll roads, I think that's actually going to be a reality in Cape Town?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think one has to, the user pays principle makes sense. I think the objection, if you need to speak to someone at OTA up in Johannesburg, I think the objection hasn't been so much about the user pays principle, but about how much is going towards tolls, or going towards roads rather, and how much is going towards infrastructure. And I've heard silly numbers now, it's 10% going towards actual roads, and the rest being overhead. Now whether that's accurate, I'm not sure.
Out of the fuel levy?
Sure.
I mean, a fuel levy is the easiest way to do it. Do it at the pump, you don't need.
Yeah, look, there's political realities there. The problem with fuel levies is that it taxes the poor, but we're a very highly taxed environment anyway. I think the concept of user pays makes sense, but what one does want to make sure is that the money goes to the right thing. It doesn't go into a black hole and then disappear into...
And then they want to put a toll road to make up the difference.
And then they make up the difference, exactly.
And what's the biggest thing you're going to miss about Cape Town when you're in chilly old Wellington?
The reality is that it's both personal and professional. I love Cape Town. It's been my home, as I say, my whole life. But what I would say is that capital, South Africa is a small country. Capital, financial capital flows in and out, and hopefully out and then back in. I think we need to recognize that human capital does the same. This is a tremendous opportunity for me, it's a tremendous opportunity for my family. And so this human capital is flowing out at the moment. But let's not be binary, it may well come back. And it's around creating a good environment here. It's hard to beat Cape Town on a day like this. It's hard to beat friends and family. And it really does boil down to that for me. It's around relationships. It's not about physical place, although there is that, but it is around relationships. And my relationships here are strong, and I think they will continue to be strong.
Thanks for your time, sir.